So could you give us just a couple of pointers when presenting, how to deal with pre-presentation jitters? So you know before that talk's happening or that presentation is happening, if you don't say yes within 5 minutes, but you know that it's coming and it might be a week away or a couple of days away or a couple of hours before, how do you deal with that bit? Because I mean, when I first started public speaking, I had no experience and I used to be very, very afraid. I was always nervous. I used to be standing backstage or standing in the room outside and think, why the fuck did I commit to this? Mm-hmm. You know, I hated it, absolutely hated it. So kind of, have you got any tips that you could share to say, how do I handle with that before you start talking yourself out of it or, you know, losing your confidence before you walk out? I'm sure you had that in the early days as well.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Yeah, in the early days I had like fucking notes on like a music stand and stuff. I was making all sort of horrible mistakes, and you kind of get past that ultimately. But some shortcuts, some hacks, if you will. So this is kind of hard to explain, but important to do and know. All high performance in any activity, whether that is sport or some artistic endeavor like dancing or singing or playing or sport, playing football, all of that happens in a zone of high performance. That's where it happens. And public speaking is no different. So the question becomes, how do you access your zone of high performance? That's really the question. Now, most people, you probably recognize it, most people can access it, but normally it takes, they get better 10 or 15 minutes in. But the first 10 or 15 minutes, they're not really there yet. Does that make sense? And then they kind of relax into it and show up a bit. But the problem is, for all of us now, especially now online and stuff, is that if you're doing an online presentation and the first 10 or 15 minutes are a bit odd, stilted, weird, shit, boring, the problem is you haven't got a captive audience. There's no social awkwardness just to click the cross in the corner and piss off. Like in this thing, if I'm rubbish, you'll probably at least wait to the break, right? Because it's socially awkward to say, sorry, you shit, I'm just leaving, and just tiptoe out. You're going to probably wait to the break because social sort of politeness keeps you there. Which means if in my first 10 minutes was rubbish, we can win them over a bit later on. But in an online presentation, that's not the case. They'll just leave because there's a zillion things can take their focus and no awkwardness to leave. So you have to be able to start well. So the question is, how do you get into the zone of high performance? Well, nobody really speaks about this, but if you think about, let's try and do a demonstration. Okay, let's do a demo. So let's say I'm a basketball player now, right? This is the ball, right? I'm bouncing the ball. Now, if you're not very good at basketball, you're a kid, what do you look at? The fucking ball. You're bouncing the ball, but you're looking at the ball, right? And let's say I'm a tennis player now, and I'm out to receive the ball. It's going to come at me. US is on right now, isn't it? Ball's going to come down at over 100 kilometers per hour, isn't it? Cricket, Zach is named then. Ball's going to come down at sort of 90 odd miles per hour potentially, right? So, how do you read the toss of the ball? Because that's what they're doing. When he's doing that, he's reading the toss of the ball, but without actually looking. Like he's not staring at it, but he's kind of looking. When you're basketball, you're seeing the ball, but you're seeing it where? In your periphery. Now, why is that important? Because when your eyes become peripheral, when your vision becomes peripheral, meaning when you're, like in this room, for example, if I'm looking, what your name, sir? Manuel. If I look at Manuel, for example, right? So it looks like my focus is you, but I notice someone just nodded their head, right? So I can still pay attention to things in the periphery. Does that make sense? Same as if I'm playing basketball, I'm bouncing the ball, right? But I might be looking over there, but because I'm in peripheral vision, I can see my teammate coming this side. I might pass there. Does that make sense? Are you with me? So how does this all relate to presentation and public speaking? So your eyes can be in either two forms of vision. You have foveal vision, which is good for detail, and it's good for problems, just for focusing on problems. And you have peripheral vision, which is good for creativity and big thinking and actually articulating. So when you're presenting, you need to be in peripheral vision. which is hard to talk about it or demonstrate. But, as I said, for example, like if I'm looking over here, then my attention, I might be looking here and speaking here and walking towards you and smiling, but I'm still paying attention to everybody else. Does that make sense? So here's how you do it when you're presenting. We've got 20 or so of you in the room, is that right? Something of that nature, I guess it looks like. So eye contact-wise, you're only ever speaking to one person at a time. Never speak to everyone at the same time. I'll pick one person out and speak just to you until I get to the comma or the full stop of the sentence, and then I move on to somebody else and I speak to you, and only you for that part of the sentence, full stop. Then I move on and start to somebody else. So that as I begin, I start with somebody else and speak just to you and you only. And then we come right the way over and speak just to you for the second half of that sentence. So you never get daunted by the giantness of the room, because you just pick one person out in the room at the time. You speak to them for half a sentence. When you reach the natural comma, you then turn and speak to the second half of the sentence to that other person. Does that make sense? But you're always like in this sort of zone, this peripheral vision state, because in peripheral vision, it is your unconscious mind that's at the fore, not your conscious mind. See, in basketball, the ball, right, you never look at it. And in a presentation, never look at your speech. Never look at your words. Don't see in your head words you need to remember. You don't need to. Only ever need to, what I said earlier, ask rhetorical questions, answer your own questions. Because your human mind is like Google. If you type into Google a question, what does Google give you? Instant answers. Yes or no, guys? Because it knows everything. So when you ask yourself intelligent questions on stage, you don't need to remember the answer. The answer comes. It's there anyway. Does that make sense? So here's the news. You don't have to remember your content, only the questions you'll ask yourself that will trigger your content.
Let's give a round of applause for that great presentation. That's the first live example that we've had. Love the tennis moves, so thank you very much. So I love what you said at the beginning about, the 30-30-30 rule. Is that how you put it? 30-30-30?
I don't know. Don't remember that.
The leadership,
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. My interpretation was the 30-30-30.
Yeah, that's right. You need to do more maths. 33-33.
33-33-33, yeah. So the group of reaching up, that's where I like to spend a lot of my time, attention and money. And a big part of the Millionaire, because I'm always on the reach up. I'm always on the level ups. I'm striving for the next. With every breath, it almost feels like for me. And so, a big part of founding this Millionaire Mastermind and creating this was not just for people to be able to access it, but it was for me, because I want to get to spend time with great people like yourself and, hear your experiences and how you've done it and learn from you. And it's always, hard for me sat in the seat, because I want to write down loads of notes as well from all the gold that I hear. So I spend my time trying to reach up and put myself in the right environments. Where you're at now, are you still able to reach up, and do you do anything? Is there any kind of masterminds or anything that you go to make sure you're still chasing that next level?
Oh, yes, of course, for sure. So, firstly, acknowledge what you just said there. That's amazing that you created this, and also acknowledging that you partly created it for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's great. So what's the lesson you guys can take from that? Well, it may not be the case for all your industries. It probably is. What are you doing to create your own community now? The greatest thing I did many years ago was create something called the Professional Speakers Academy. And now there are currently 400 members in Europe that all pay between 10 and 18 grand a year to belong to it, right? And this seems like benign, nothing, but we created a WhatsApp group for those 300 plus people. And that thing, if I look now, it's going to be like the top thing straight away. Yeah, it is. That's going to ping. Like literally today, that thing has probably pinged something like about 50 times already today, with the members talking to each other. So I'm not even doing anything. I'm just allowing them to talk to each other. Let me ask you this question. What would happen if you connected your clients with each other? Can you create that? Because they probably like it, right? Because they're like-minded kind of people potentially, aren't they? Or can you find a way to make that work? Even if it's outside, can you find a way to connect people together? Try to find it, because one of the strongest needs we all have is the need to be connected, right? In a very supposedly connected but unconnected world. So, can you connect people together? Where can you pull people together? Because if the strand of connection is only from them to you, that's an easily broken chain. But if you've created a network where they're already interconnected, but it's kind of through you, this connection, this network, does that make sense? It's very hard to leave. And in business, repeat business, referrals, all that kind of stuff, that's where, the big money is, isn't it? Yes or no, guys, in the second, third sale, or the sale that you get where you didn't have to pay for the marketing because it just fell in lap, like, low-hanging fruit stuff. That can happen because you create the environment for that to occur. So, can you think about that? Is there a way that you could actually bring your own clients together? And that leads me to another question as well, which is there another business that you guys all have at your fingertips but don't know that you have? My business is showing people, business owners like you, how to generate more business. But quite often I find that they are one level too low. Now, what does that mean? So I'll give you an example. So one of my clients, Manish, my dentist, right, responsible for these teeth. Good lad. So he's got 4 dental practices down in the south of England. And I said to him, you've obviously got, you're very good at building dental practices. Why don't you teach other dentists how to build a dental practice? Because at the moment, the only way you leverage your knowledge is to open another practice, which has a lot of capital risk, right? And capital cost. But why don't you just extract from your head how you build a successful dental practice? How many people in the world don't know what you know? Why don't you create a program, a course on it, online? And why don't you maybe just sell some mentoring or some kind of masterminding kind of thing on the back of that? So that's what he did. Now, he's from India originally, lives here now, so he does a lot of this work in India. It's a multi-million-pound plus business today that didn't exist for that conversation. So my question is, should you just be doing what you know, or can you teach what you know? Because you get paid more by teaching it than you will by actually doing it. So rather than work with the end user, could you in fact actually start making the client, your new client, the people who work with the people down here? Does that make sense? You understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you become like a leader. You start training the people. And that for most of you, as you get older, that's a natural evolution because you've gained so much knowledge, so much wisdom over the years. Like you're not leveraging it in the best way just by using it only yourself. It's kind of selfish, you might say, in some way, right? So why don't you turn all that knowledge into something valuable? Because today, more than ever, in the sort of world we live in today, there are people out there that want to know what you know and are willing to pay good money to know what you know as well. So that becomes, you're probably still going to keep your hand in and have your existing business, right? Because that keeps you relevant. But at the same time, could you create a new business, training and teaching what you know? Almost creating your own competition almost, does that make sense? They're going to exist anyway. Why not get paid for them to become? And why not pick the best ones and then franchise out what you do? I mean, there's loads of different ways you could do that by literally taking out your head what you know and literally teaching it because it has value, immense value. And that's, I can't remember, what was your question?
So do you spend any time with anybody else reaching
Yeah,
out?
that's right. So that's first thing is, so create your own. And in that example, what I just gave, then connecting those other dentists with each other, does that make sense? Or other business owners together, or I've got an electrician, like James Dewan. He was £180,000 in debt when he first met me because he was an electrical contractor, had 2 big contracts, went bust on him, owed lots of money. So then sort of took a downward status to become a retail, go into people's houses kind of electrician. Built a very successful local tradesman business. but wasn't into the debt. So I said to him, why don't you train other local tradesmen, why don't you train other electricians initially how to run and a better electrician, how to get clients, how to manage clients, all that kind of stuff that you know how to do. So he did that, and he's made 3.7 million, I think, now off the back of that, paid off his debt, mortgage-free, debt-free, and he's in a new relationship with somebody that was actually in my academy as well.